Have you ever felt like the weight of the world is crashing down on you? Like there's no way out, and you're just drowning in the noise of life? I get it. I've been there. Sometimes it feels like everything's falling apart, and no matter how hard you try to keep it together, the stress, anxiety, and fear just won't let up. It's like you're standing in the middle of a storm, and there's no safe place to hide. But let me tell you something. There is a place where you can find refuge, a shelter that won't let you down. Psalm 91 speaks directly to this. In fact, it says, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." Psalm 91 verse 1. You don't have to be alone in your struggles. God's shelter is waiting for you, and it's a place of peace, protection, and strength. Today, we're going to pray through Psalm 91 together. Let's find his refuge, because you don't have to do this on your own. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, or just broken, you're in the right place. Let's start this morning by leaning into the promises of God and letting his word become the anchor you need. Let's pray together. You know, when life feels like it's pulling you in every direction, it's hard not to feel exposed, vulnerable. We've all been there, trapped in the middle of chaos, stuck in situations where the pressure is just too much. Whether it's the weight of work piling up, the stress of relationships, or the uncertainty of tomorrow, it feels like there's no escape, no refuge. But here's the thing. God knows exactly what that feels like. In fact, he's been there too. Look at the story of David, the writer of many Psalms, including this one. David spent years fleeing from enemies, hiding in caves, constantly running for his life. He was a man who knew what it meant to be overwhelmed, hunted, and desperate. Yet in the middle of it all, he found something remarkable. A refuge in God. When everything around him was crumbling, when the armies were closing in, David didn't run to a fortress built by human hands. No, he ran to the shelter of the Most High. In Psalm 91, David says it clearly, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust." Psalm 91 verse 2. David didn't just hope God would protect him, he trusted in it. He didn't look for a backup plan or rely on his own strength. He knew that when God is your shelter, nothing else matters. So if you're feeling that overwhelming weight today, understand that you're not alone. Just like David, you have access to the same God who has always been a refuge for his people. No matter what you're facing, you don't have to fight this battle by yourself. God is there, waiting to shield you, waiting to hold you close. Let that truth sink in. Can you imagine being in a place so dangerous, so filled with peril, that you feel like every step could be your last? That's the kind of situation David found himself in time and time again. But here's what's so powerful. He was never alone. In the midst of the chaos, when the arrows were flying and the enemies were advancing, David experienced the unshakable protection of God. He didn't just survive, he thrived because of the shelter that God provided. Psalm 91, verse 3 gives us this incredible promise. "Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence." Now think about that. The fowler's snare was a trap set to capture birds. It was a sudden, unseen danger, something that could come at any moment without warning. And the deadly pestilence? Well, in David's day, that was the kind of disease or disaster that would sweep through a village, striking down the helpless and leaving devastation in its wake. These aren't just random phrases. These are real threats that David was facing, ones that could destroy him at any time. And yet, here's what he says. God will save you from these traps. God will protect you from the unseen dangers, from the attacks you don't even know are coming. You see, the overwhelming fear that we face in life is often about what we can't control. The things that feel like they're going to come crashing down, like we're going to be caught off guard or blindsided by life's blows. But the beauty of this promise is that God isn't just with us in the things we see coming. He's with us in the things we can't even imagine yet. The truth is, we may not always see the traps, the dangers, the disasters in our path, but God does, and He is already ahead of us, working behind the scenes, setting up divine protection that we don't even realize. How comforting is that? To know that God's shelter is not just for the things we know, but also for the things we don't. To know that His protection is covering us in ways we may never fully understand. So, let go of that anxiety. Let go of the fear that keeps you up at night wondering what might happen. Instead, rest in the truth that God has already set a shield around you. He has already sent His protection ahead of you, and He will keep you safe in His shelter. It might feel like you're walking through a storm, but remember, you are walking through it under His covering, and nothing can touch you without His permission. What a powerful place to stand, knowing that God is guarding you with His mighty hand. Have you ever felt the weight of fear pressing down on you? Maybe it's the worry that you're not enough, or the deep concern that something bad is just around the corner. Fear has this way of creeping into our minds, almost like an invisible force that controls our thoughts, our actions, and our peace. It makes everything feel bigger than it is, and suddenly, even the smallest thing can seem like the end of the world. But what if I told you that you don't have to carry that fear alone? In Psalm 91, verse 1, David gives us this incredible image. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. The shadow of the Almighty. Think about that for a second. It's not just any shadow. It's the shadow of the All-Powerful, the Creator of the universe, the one who has the authority over everything seen and unseen. And this is where He promises to place you, under His shadow. It's like being so close to God that His presence overshadows everything else. Imagine standing in the shade on a scorching hot day. The sun is still blazing, the heat is still intense, but in the shadow it feels cooler, more bearable. That's exactly what God's protection does for us. The world might be hot, chaotic, and overwhelming, but under the shadow of the Almighty, we find relief. Under His shadow, we find safety from the harshness of life. Now, think about the story of Moses. When God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses was overwhelmed, scared, and completely uncertain of how he would manage. But God didn't just give Moses a mission, He gave him His presence. In Exodus 33:14, God tells Moses, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." In that moment, God didn't just promise Moses a destination or a victory. He promised him the peace and protection of His presence, which would overshadow every fear and every challenge. And the same promise stands for you today. No matter what you're facing, no matter how overwhelming it seems, God's shadow is over you. You don't have to navigate this life alone. You don't have to fight your battles alone. The question is, are you willing to step into that shadow? Are you ready to rest in His protection? When we do, everything shifts. The fear, the stress, the overwhelm, they all lose their grip on us because we're not relying on our own strength. We're resting in His. So let the shadow of the Almighty cover you today. Let His presence be your peace in the middle of whatever storm you're facing. There's something about fear that can paralyze you, right? It's not just a feeling. It's an overwhelming force that can grip your heart and make you question everything. Fear turns what should be a small obstacle into a mountain, and suddenly the world feels like it's closing in. But what if I told you that God has already given you the power to overcome fear? That in His shelter, fear has no hold on you. Psalm 91, verse 5-6 speaks directly to this. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. In other words, no matter what comes against you, whether it's the fear of the unknown, the terror that strikes when the lights go out at night, or the relentless anxiety that chases you during the day, you don't have to be afraid. Why? Because God's protection covers you in every moment, in every circumstance. Think about the terror that grips people in the dark when they're left alone with their thoughts. It's easy to be overwhelmed when you're up at 2 a.m., your mind racing, thinking about all the worst-case scenarios. But God promises that even in the night, when everything feels heavier and the fear creeps in, you are safe in His shelter. The terror of night can't touch you when you are covered by His presence. And this isn't just for the literal darkness. It's also for the dark seasons of life, the moments when everything seems uncertain, when your heart is heavy and the world feels bleak. God says that He will be your refuge in that darkness too. Now let's take a look at the arrow that flies by day and the pestilence that stalks in the darkness. These are symbols of the dangers we don't see coming. It's the anxiety about the future, the fear of things that might or might not happen. It's the constant wondering, what if I fail? What if I don't make it? What if something terrible happens? It's a kind of fear that's always lurking, just out of sight, but still managing to make you feel like you're in danger. But here's the promise in Psalm 91. God is bigger than your fears. He's bigger than the unknowns, bigger than the what-ifs that haunt your mind. The arrows of worry can't pierce the shield of God's protection. The pestilence of panic and doubt can't invade the space where God's peace reigns. You see, fear thrives on uncertainty. It makes you think that everything is fragile and that you're one step away from disaster. But when you rest in God's shelter, fear loses its power. You begin to see life for what it truly is. A series of challenges that you can face with God by your side. Fear tries to isolate you, but God invites you into His presence where peace reigns and terror is silenced. He is your refuge, your fortress, and in Him, fear has no place to live. So if you're battling fear today, hold on to this. You don't have to fight it alone. God is with you, and His shelter is a place of perfect peace. Let that sink in and know that His protection is covering you from every terror, every nightmare, and every fear that tries to take hold of your heart. Fear may come knocking, but you don't have to answer the door. Have you ever looked around and felt like everyone else is falling apart? It's easy to feel like the whole world is crumbling, especially when you see others going through hardship, loss, and struggle. It seems like disaster is everywhere, and the weight of it all threatens to bury you too. But here's where God's word takes us to a place of incredible peace. Psalm 91, verses 7-8, speak so powerfully to this reality. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. Let that sink in for a moment. 1,000 may fall, 10,000 may fall. The storm may rage, the world may be shaken, but you will stand, you will be protected. And while others may crumble, you will be held secure in the shelter of the Almighty. It's like when you're walking through a storm with an umbrella. The rain is pouring down, the winds are howling, and everything around you is being swept away. But there you are, under the protection of that umbrella, dry, safe, secure. That's what God's protection does for us. It doesn't mean we won't face challenges or that bad things won't happen. It means that no matter what comes against us, we won't be destroyed. God's shelter keeps us standing firm when everything around us is falling apart. There's a powerful lesson in this for us. You see, when life feels like it's falling apart and everyone around us is being swept away by the storm, it's easy to start doubting. You might look at your own life and think, why am I not protected? Why is everything so hard? But this verse reminds us that God's protection isn't always about preventing the storm. It's about keeping us safe through it. Think of the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to bow down to the king's idol. The flames were so hot that the soldiers who threw them in were consumed by the heat. Yet, those three men walked through the fire. The flames didn't burn them, the smoke didn't suffocate them, and not a single hair on their heads was singed. Why? Because they were under God's protection. Even in the most impossible situation, they were kept safe by the Almighty. When you're facing the fire, when the storms of life seem like they're too much to handle, God's shelter is still there. You may see others fall around you, but He will keep you standing. You will not be moved. His protection is steadfast. And this isn't just for the big dramatic moments, it's for the day-to-day battles too. No matter what's happening in the world, no matter how many people around you are struggling, God promises that His protection will surround you. He will hold you firm. And in the end, you will stand untouched by the destruction all around you. So, when the world feels like it's crumbling, don't let fear take hold. Stand firm in the knowledge that God's protection is keeping you safe, keeping you steady. You are not alone in this. You are covered by the one who promises that no matter what happens, you will stand. You know what's crazy? We often feel like we're alone in our struggles, as if we're fighting the battles of life all by ourselves. But the reality is, God has an army standing by, ready to fight on our behalf. The unseen world is more active than we realize, and God's protection doesn't just come from His own presence. It comes with help from His angels. Psalm 91 verse 11 to 12 says, "For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Just take a moment to picture that. God, in His infinite power and mercy, commands His angels to watch over you. These heavenly beings are not passive observers. They're actively involved in guarding you, protecting you from harm. They're standing at attention, ready to step in when you need them most. This idea of angelic protection isn't just some abstract theological concept. It's real. Remember when Elisha and his servant were surrounded by an army? In 2 Kings 6, the servant was terrified because they were vastly outnumbered. But Elisha wasn't scared. He prayed that God would open his servant's eyes, and when the servant looked again, he saw the hills full of fiery horses and chariots of fire, God's army, ready for battle. The enemy might have had their soldiers, but God's angels were surrounding them, protecting them. And the same is true for you today. You might not always see them, but God has His angels on assignment to protect you. They're guarding you from accidents, from danger, from harm that you don't even know is coming. The enemies you can't see, they're being held back by forces you can't even imagine. This doesn't mean we won't face challenges, but it does mean that we're never facing them alone. God's angels are ready to intervene when you're in trouble. They're here to guard you, to lift you up, and to ensure that no harm comes to you without God's permission. Imagine that. Every step you take is being watched over by God's personal protection team. That's how much He loves you. He's not just saying, "I'll be with you." He's saying, "I've got angels guarding you. I've got my hand on you, and no harm will come near you." So when life feels like it's getting too heavy, or you're feeling vulnerable, remember, you have an army of angels protecting you. They are on guard, lifting you up when you fall, and ensuring that no weapon formed against you will succeed. God's protection goes beyond what you can see, and He's got you covered from every side. When everything feels out of control and like the world is closing in on you, it's easy to wonder, where's the way out? The constant pressure, the relentless struggle, and the uncertainty of life can leave you feeling trapped. It's like you're stuck in quicksand, and every time you try to move forward, the weight of it all pulls you deeper. But here's the thing: God is a deliverer, and when you call on Him, He promises to pull you out of the pit. Psalm 91, verse 14 to 15 says, "Because He loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him." Let that sink in. God promises to rescue you. Not just a little help, not just a small nudge in the right direction. He will deliver you. He will pull you out of the places where you feel stuck. It's easy to feel like there's no way out when we're overwhelmed. You might be facing a financial crisis, relationship problems, or health issues that just won't seem to go away. It can feel like you're in a pit with no ladder to climb, no rope to grab. But God says, "I will rescue you." The one who created the universe, the one who holds all power in His hands, is not distant or detached from your situation. He sees you, and He will deliver you. There's a powerful moment in the Bible when God delivers His people from the Red Sea. The Israelites were cornered, with the Egyptian army closing in behind them, and the sea in front of them. It seemed like there was no escape. But God told Moses to raise his staff, and as he did, the sea parted, creating a path for the Israelites to walk through on dry land. The enemy thought they had them trapped, but God made a way where there was no way. In the same way, God will make a way for you. When you feel like you're at the end of your rope, like there's no way out of the mess you're in, God promises to deliver you. He has the power to open doors you thought were closed forever, to change your circumstances in an instant, and to provide the escape route when everything seems impossible. But here's the catch. God says this promise is for those who love Him and acknowledge His name. It's not just about asking for help. It's about putting your trust in Him, acknowledging that He is the one who can deliver you. You may not always understand how He'll do it or when, but He's promised that He will. And He has never broken a promise. So, when you're in trouble, when it feels like there's no way out, call on Him. Cry out to the one who will deliver you. God is your way out. and He is faithful to show you the way through. You're not stuck. You're not alone. God is right there with you, ready to rescue you and lead you to freedom. When we're stuck in the thick of it, when life feels like one constant battle and nothing seems to be going our way, it can be hard to imagine that there could be anything good coming out of the struggle. But God's word doesn't leave us in the dark. In fact, He has a promise that even in the midst of hardship, He will not only bring us through, but He will honor us and give us long life. Psalm 91 verse 16 says, "With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation." Take a minute to really hear that. Long life, not just a long existence, not just scraping by, enduring the years. No, God promises to satisfy you with long life. There's something so rich about that word satisfaction. It's not just about surviving, it's about living fully, living with purpose, living in peace and abundance. It's the kind of life that's marked by God's hand of blessing, even in the hard seasons. But notice something. The promise of long life isn't just about a quantity of years, it's about a quality of life. God says He will show you His salvation. And salvation isn't just about being saved from eternal separation from God. It's about being delivered in every area of your life. His salvation is holistic. It covers your soul, your body, your mind, your heart, and your circumstances. It's a life that's not just about getting through the struggles, but thriving in the middle of them. This reminds me of the story of Job. If there was ever a person who had every reason to be overwhelmed, it was him. Job lost his wealth, his health, and even his family. It seemed like everything he had built was taken away in an instant. He was a man of faith who had lived a righteous life, but still, he found himself in the deepest of struggles. And yet, through all of it, Job never lost his faith. He held on to God's promises, even when he couldn't understand the reason behind his suffering. At the end of Job's story, God didn't just give him back what he lost. He restored it in abundance. Job lived to see twice as much as he had before. God not only delivered him from his trials, but He blessed him with a long life full of satisfaction. That's the kind of promise God is giving you today. Even in your struggles, you will find satisfaction. Even in your pain, God can bring restoration. Even when the world says it's over, God says, "I will satisfy you with long life and show you my salvation." So, if you're in the middle of a trial right now, don't give up. Hold on to this promise. God isn't just going to see you through. He's going to honor you and bless you with a long, satisfying life. This doesn't mean it'll always be easy, but it means that no matter what, God's goodness will follow you, and His hand of blessing will be on you. Keep trusting Him through the tough times, because on the other side, He has something beautiful waiting for you. When life's storms come at us, it often feels like the ground beneath our feet is shifting. One moment, everything is steady, and the next, it's like you're walking on sand, unsure of where you'll land. But here's the beauty of Psalm 91. It doesn't just promise protection in a fleeting way. It promises stability. God isn't just a temporary refuge. He's an unshakable refuge. And no matter how hard the wind blows, no matter how intense the storm, He remains the rock beneath your feet. Psalm 91, verse 9 to 10 says, "If you say, 'The Lord is my refuge,' and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you, no disaster will come near your tent." This is an incredible declaration. It's saying, God, you are my refuge. You are my safe place. I trust you, and I will make you my dwelling place. When you make God your refuge, you're standing on a foundation that can't be shaken. Everything else around you might feel unstable, but God is the one constant, the one secure place where you can always find rest and peace. Now imagine this. In the ancient world, a refuge wasn't just some kind of temporary hiding place. It was a place of safety, a fortified city or a stronghold where you could find protection from enemies. So when David says, "The Lord is my refuge," he's not just talking about a casual shelter. He's talking about a fortress that can't be breached. The Lord is the stronghold that shields us from all harm. Think about it. You're not just finding a quick escape from trouble. You're finding a place that protects you from every angle. Nothing can break through God's fortress. And when we make God our dwelling place, we're not just stopping by for a quick visit or hiding out until the storm passes. We're living in His protection. We're abiding in the safety of His presence, where no harm can reach us. The world around us is full of instability. Things are constantly changing. Relationships break, jobs come and go, and health can suddenly fail. But in the shelter of the Almighty, there is a refuge that never shifts. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So no matter what comes, you can stand firm in Him. You don't have to panic when life feels uncertain. You don't have to worry when the ground beneath you feels unsteady. Because when God is your refuge, you're standing on solid ground. It's like the wise man who built his house on the rock, while the foolish man built on the sand. The winds blew, the rains came, and the floods rose, but the house on the rock stood firm. That's the kind of security God offers. When you make God your refuge, you're not just trying to weather the storm, you're resting in a fortress that will never fall, no matter how fierce the storm gets. So, when the world feels like it's shaking, remember this. God's refuge is unshakable. He's the solid ground beneath your feet. No matter how high the waves get or how strong the winds blow, you're standing firm in His protection. Don't let the chaos around you steal your peace. When you feel like you can't take another step, like the weight of everything around you is too much to bear, that's when God steps in with His most powerful promise. He will be with you. It's easy to think that God is only close when everything's going right, when life is smooth and we've got it all together. But the truth is, it's in our weakest moments, our lowest points, that God is most present, and He's not there to condemn us or leave us in despair. He's there to carry us. Psalm 91 verse 15 says, "He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him." God doesn't say He'll only be there when we've got it all figured out. No, He promises to be with us in trouble, not just after it's over, not just when we've figured everything out, but in it. When everything's falling apart and you feel like you've reached your breaking point, that's when God promises to be closest. Think of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. On the night He was betrayed, He was facing the greatest trial of His life. The cross was just hours away, and He knew the pain and suffering He would endure. He asked His disciples to stay with Him, to pray with Him, and yet they fell asleep. In His hour of deepest need, He felt the weight of it all, but He also knew something profound. His Father was with Him. Even though the disciples couldn't stay awake with Him, God's presence didn't leave. Even in His weakest moment, Jesus wasn't abandoned. God is the same for you. In your darkest hour, when you feel like you're at the end of your rope, He is right there, carrying you through. His presence is not distant or far off. He is with you in the trouble. And not only that, but He will deliver you from it. He won't leave you in your struggle. He'll help you through it. He will honor you in your weakness because he knows that it's in those moments that his strength is most evident. It's like when you're carrying a heavy load. It's impossible to do it alone, but then someone steps in to help you carry the weight. At first, it feels like you can't even move, but suddenly, with that extra help, you realize you can go farther than you thought. That's how God's presence works in our weakness. When we're ready to admit that we can't do it alone, He comes alongside us and gives us the strength to keep going. So if you're feeling weak, worn out, or overwhelmed, don't think you have to pull yourself together before God will step in. He's with you right now, in the middle of your trouble, in your brokenness, in your fear. He is your strength when you feel weak, and He promises that He will not leave you. He will carry you through. Just call on Him, and He will answer. You are never alone in this. God's presence is your strength, your refuge, and your deliverance. In the middle of the chaos, when everything feels like it's spinning out of control, one of the hardest things to find is peace. It feels like an impossible dream, something out of reach, especially when your mind is racing with worry and anxiety. But here's the good news. God's peace doesn't depend on our circumstances. It doesn't require everything to be perfect or for life to stop being hard. His peace is something that transcends what's happening around us. It's a deep, unshakable peace that rests in Him no matter what the world throws our way. Psalm 91 verse 4 says, "He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart." I love this imagery. Picture a mother bird with her wings spread wide, gathering her young beneath her wings to protect them from the storm. That's what God does for us. He wraps us in His peace, and in His shelter, we can rest. Even when the winds are howling and the world is raging, we can find refuge in His embrace. But here's where it gets real. Resting in God's peace isn't about passive waiting for things to get better. It's about actively choosing to trust in His protection, to trust that He's got it under control, even when we can't see the way forward. It's about letting go of the need to control everything and simply resting in the fact that God is in control. This reminds me of the story of Jesus and His disciples in the boat during a storm. In Mark 4, a violent storm suddenly rose up and the disciples were terrified. Meanwhile, Jesus was asleep in the boat. The disciples were freaking out, thinking they were going to drown, but Jesus was at peace, resting through the storm. When they woke Him up, He simply said, "Peace, be still." And the storm stopped, just like that. Now let me ask you, how could Jesus be at peace in the middle of such a violent storm? Because He knew something His disciples didn't yet understand. God is always in control. No matter how loud the storm gets, no matter how fierce the winds blow, God is the one who holds the power to speak peace over the chaos. And here's the promise for you. God offers you that same peace. In the middle of your storms, in the chaos, in the uncertainty, you don't have to fight for peace. You don't have to struggle to find it. You just have to rest under His wings. Trust in His faithfulness and let Him be your refuge. His peace will guard your heart and mind, even when it feels like everything around you is falling apart. So if you're anxious, if you're overwhelmed, take a deep breath. Rest. God has you under His wings. You don't have to fix everything on your own. You don't have to fight for peace. You can rest in it, knowing that He's got it all under control. He is your refuge, and in His shelter, you will find peace, that surpasses all understanding. There's something incredibly powerful about knowing that God's protection isn't just for the big, dramatic things. It's for the everyday battles too. We often think of evil as being these huge, catastrophic events, like a major disaster or a huge tragedy. But the reality is, evil can show up in a lot of small, subtle ways, in the form of negativity, doubt, temptation, or even the everyday struggles that seem to wear us down. It's easy to feel like evil is always lurking, always waiting to catch us off guard. But here's where God's promise in Psalm 91 becomes incredibly personal and powerful. Psalm 91 verse 10 declares, "No harm will overtake you, no disaster will come near your tent." This isn't just about the big catastrophes, it's about the little things too. The anxiety that keeps you up at night, the fear that keeps sneaking in, the voices of doubt that say, "You won't make it, you're not strong enough, you're not good enough." All of these are forms of evil that can try to creep into our lives, slowly eroding our peace and confidence. But God promises that none of these things, none, will overtake you. They won't overwhelm you. He's placed His protection around you, and His shelter is more powerful than anything that can come against you. Whether it's the small whispers of negativity or the bigger storms of life, no evil can get through to you without God's permission. And when you dwell in His shelter, those attacks lose their power. This reminds me of the story of the Apostle Paul. He faced incredible hardships, including being shipwrecked, beaten, imprisoned, and constantly persecuted. Yet, in 2 Corinthians 4:8 and 9 he writes, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed but not in despair, persecuted but not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed." Paul understood that, no matter how much evil or hardship he faced, God's protection would never let him be destroyed. Even when it seemed like everything was against him, he was never overtaken by it. And the same is true for you. Life may feel like it's hitting you from all sides, and evil may seem to be closing in. But if you are in God's shelter, if you are resting under His wings, no evil can overtake you. It may try to shake you, it may try to push you to your limits, but it will never destroy you. God's protection is more powerful than anything the world can throw at you. So when fear, doubt, or any form of evil starts to knock at the door of your heart, remind yourself of this promise. No harm will overtake me. No disaster, no temptation, no attack. Nothing can come near your tent when you are under God's protection. Stand firm in His shelter. His promise is your shield, and nothing can break through His defense. You are safe, you are secure, and no evil can take what God has already secured for you. When life starts to feel overwhelming, we often look for something solid to hold on to, right? We want something we can rely on. Something that will never change, no matter how crazy everything else gets. That's where the power of God's faithfulness comes in. His faithfulness isn't just a comforting thought or a nice idea. It's a shield. It's the kind of shield that guards you, protects you, and keeps you safe when everything around you seems to be falling apart. Psalm 91 verse 4 says, "His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart." Notice how it doesn't say maybe or could be your shield. It says will be. God's faithfulness is as reliable as it gets. It's not like human promises that can break or fade with time. God is always faithful, and His faithfulness is the very shield that keeps you from harm. Think about the times in your life when you felt vulnerable or uncertain, when things were tough and you didn't know how you were going to make it. Maybe it was a moment of heartbreak, financial strain, or a health crisis. But somehow, you made it through. It wasn't because you had all the answers or knew how everything was going to work out. It was because God's faithfulness was there, covering you, shielding you from the worst. He's always been there, even when you didn't see him. This reminds me of the story of the Israelites wandering in the desert. They didn't always have everything figured out. They complained, they doubted, and they even turned away from God at times. But God remained faithful to them, providing manna from heaven, guiding them with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. He was always with them, even in their wandering. His faithfulness was their shield, protecting them, guiding them, and making sure they would eventually reach the promised land. And in the same way, God's faithfulness is your shield. Even when you feel like you're walking through a wilderness, like you're in the dark and don't know which way to turn, his faithfulness is always at work. It doesn't matter what the world throws at you. It doesn't matter how many obstacles appear in your path. God's faithfulness is the shield that guards your heart, your mind, and your soul. So if you're feeling vulnerable or unsure today, remember this. God's faithfulness is your shield. When everything around you feels shaky, when people let you down, when situations seem hopeless, God's faithfulness will never fail you. You are covered. You are protected. His shield will hold steady when everything else is falling apart. Keep trusting in his faithfulness, because it's a protection you can rely on, always and forever. Sometimes, life can feel like it's all up in the air, right? You're waiting for things to work out, hoping for some kind of miracle. But there's that nagging doubt in the back of your mind, wondering if things will really get better, or if God's promises are just wishful thinking. You might feel like you've been waiting forever, or you might question if God will truly come through for you this time. But here's the truth that we need to hold on to. God's promises are unbreakable. No matter what you're facing, God's word never fails. Psalm 91 verse 4 says, "He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge." This isn't just a nice idea or a comforting metaphor. This is a promise from God that will never fail. You can count on it, no matter how impossible it may seem. When God says he will protect you, he means it. When he says he will be your refuge, he will be there for you, and nothing in this world can break that promise. Look at the story of Noah and the flood. God made a covenant with Noah, telling him to build an ark to save his family and the animals from the coming flood. It didn't make sense at the time. It seemed absurd. There was no rain, no evidence that a flood was coming, but Noah trusted God's promise, even when it seemed impossible. And what happened? The flood came, but Noah's family was safe in the ark. God's promise to Noah was unbreakable, and it's the same with his promises to us. Or think about the Israelites in Egypt, trapped in slavery for hundreds of years. God promised them deliverance, but there were times when they must have doubted if it would ever come. Yet in the end, God kept his word. He delivered them through the Red Sea, and they went on to inherit the land he had promised. The same God who made that promise to them is the God who made promises to you, and he's never broken one. This is where we need to shift our perspective. God's promises are stronger than our circumstances. We might feel overwhelmed, like everything around us is falling apart, but God's word is a rock that stands firm no matter what happens. Even when things don't look like they'll work out, God is still faithful. His promises don't depend on what we see. They depend on who He is, and He is faithful, trustworthy, and true. So when doubt creeps in, when you feel like God might not come through this time, remember, God's promises are unbreakable. You can rest in the knowledge that His word never fails. If He said He will protect you, He will. If He said He will provide for you, He will. If He promised to be with you, He is. His faithfulness is unchanging, and He will fulfill every promise He's made to you. Hold on to that truth. Let it be the foundation you stand on, no matter what you're facing. His promises are more than words. They are the bedrock of your peace and security. There's nothing more frustrating than feeling like you're stuck in a season of waiting. You pray, you hope, you believe, but the breakthrough never seems to come. It's easy to start questioning God's timing, wondering why He hasn't moved yet, why He's allowing you to wait. But here's something we need to understand. God's timing is perfect. Even when it doesn't make sense to us, He is never late. He's never early. He's always right on time. Psalm 91 verse 15 says, "He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him." Notice that God says, "I will answer him." And that doesn't mean on our timeline. God doesn't just show up when we want Him to, but He does show up when we need Him most. There are times when we want God to move right now, when we think the clock is ticking, but His timing is always for our good. He knows exactly what we need, when we need it, and how it will be best for us. Think about the story of Lazarus in the Bible. Lazarus was sick, and his sisters, Mary and Martha, sent word to Jesus, hoping He would come and heal him. But Jesus didn't rush to Lazarus' side. In fact, He waited for 2 more days before He went. By the time He arrived, Lazarus had died. You can imagine the confusion, the grief, and the frustration that must have been in Mary and Martha's hearts. They were sure that if Jesus had come sooner, their brother would still be alive. But Jesus had something bigger in mind. He wasn't just going to heal Lazarus, He was going to raise him from the dead. And when He finally did, it was a miraculous moment that showed everyone the power of God's timing. Jesus wasn't late. He wasn't slow. He was right on time for His purposes. In your life, it might feel like you're in a season of waiting, like God's timing isn't matching up with your expectations. But trust me, He sees the whole picture. He knows what you need and when you need it. Sometimes the waiting is part of the process, teaching you patience, trust, and reliance on Him. And when He does move, it will be a testimony of His perfect timing and faithfulness. So, if you're in a waiting season, don't lose heart. God is still working behind the scenes. His timing is never wrong. He is faithful, trustful, and when the time is right, He will answer you and deliver you in ways you never expected. Trust that He's in control and lean into the truth that His plan for you is always better than your own. He's got this, and He's got you. Just wait on Him. The breakthrough is coming. There's something about prayer that makes us feel a little more in control, isn't there? It's like when you're dealing with overwhelming situations and everything feels out of your hands. Prayer is that one thing you can hold on to. You might not see immediate results, but the act of speaking to God, pouring out your heart, and asking for His help brings a peace that nothing else can. Psalm 91 verse 15 says, "He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him." God promises to answer when we call on Him. Not if we call on Him, but when. Prayer is an invitation for God to step into your circumstances. It's an invitation to bring His presence into your struggle. and His presence changes everything. You might not have the strength to change your situation, but God's strength is always available. And prayer is the bridge between your struggle and His deliverance. Think about the story of Elijah on Mount Carmel. The Israelites were in deep idolatry, and there was a showdown between Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Elijah wasn't concerned with the power of the enemy, though. His confidence came from knowing that when he called on God, God would answer. And in 1 Kings 18:37, he prayed, "Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again." And God answered immediately, sending fire from heaven to consume the offering. Elijah didn't need to beg or manipulate God. He just called on Him with faith, knowing that God would deliver. That same God is waiting for you to call on Him today. When you pray, you're not just asking for a solution. You're aligning yourself with God's power, tapping into the very source that can change everything. Prayer's about more than just asking. It's about trusting. It's about resting in the fact that the one who is able to move mountains is listening and is ready to act on your behalf. So when life feels heavy and overwhelming, when trouble strikes, don't hesitate to call on God. Don't wait until you're completely broken. Call on Him the moment the weight starts to settle in. He's already promised that He will answer you. He will be with you in your trouble. He will deliver you. And you can trust that every prayer you pray is being heard, even when you don't see the answers immediately. Prayer isn't just a ritual. It's a conversation with the Creator of the universe. And in that conversation, He promises to give you peace, deliverance, and the strength to make it through. So, don't underestimate the power of a simple prayer. No matter how overwhelmed you feel, prayer is your direct line to God's help. Call on Him, and He will answer. It's easy to look at the challenges we face and wonder if we're truly covered. When things get really tough, when you feel like everything is falling apart and you don't know which way to turn, it can feel like God's protection might be insufficient or even distant. But here's the absolute truth that we need to remind ourselves of. God's protection is always enough. It's never lacking. His shelter is all-encompassing, and He is fully capable of covering every aspect of our lives, no matter how big or small the struggle. Psalm 91 verse 16 says, "With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation." God doesn't just protect us from harm, He satisfies us. His protection isn't just about keeping us from danger. It's about filling us with what we truly need: peace, joy, purpose, and His salvation. Even when the world feels like it's too much to handle, God's protection sustains us. It's enough for the battles you're facing today, and it will be enough for whatever comes tomorrow. Look at the story of Daniel in the lion's den. He was thrown into a pit of hungry lions for his faith, and everything pointed to certain death. Yet, when the king came to check on him the next morning, Daniel was unharmed. In Daniel 6:22, he said, "My God sent His angel, and He shut the mouths of the lions." God didn't just protect Daniel in the den, He protected him completely. The lions could do nothing to harm him. What looked like certain destruction became a testimony to God's unwavering protection. And that's the same protection He promises you. It's not just a shield that blocks some attacks while leaving you exposed to others. No, His protection is total. It covers you from every angle. The enemy might try to throw all sorts of attacks at you: disease, fear, financial struggles, relational conflict. but none of it can overpower the shelter that God provides. His protection is enough to carry you through anything. But here's the key. God's protection isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. Psalm 91 doesn't just promise safety, it promises satisfaction. He promises that His protection will sustain you, give you peace, and fill you with His presence, even when you're walking through the most difficult seasons. God's protection is complete, and it is always enough. So when the world tells you you're not strong enough or the storm feels too big, remember this: God's protection is more than enough for you. It's enough to keep you safe. It's enough to give you peace. It's enough to bring you through, no matter what. You are never alone in this battle. His shelter is always open to you, and in His presence you will find everything you need to not only survive but thrive. God's protection is enough, and it will never fail you. You've probably noticed by now that life doesn't come with an instruction manual. We're constantly faced with decisions, struggles, and challenges that often leave us feeling drained, overwhelmed, and unsure of where to turn next. When we try to rely on our own strength, we quickly realize how limited we really are. But here's the good news. You don't have to rely on your own strength to make it through. In fact, the more you lean into God's strength, the more you realize that His power is infinitely greater than anything you could muster up on your own. Psalm 91, verse 15 says, "He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him." Notice the promise here. God will deliver you in trouble. Not after the trouble's over. Not when you've figured it all out. In the trouble. That's because God doesn't leave us to face the storm on our own. He's right there in the middle of it with us, and He's the one who gives us the strength to endure. When you feel like you're about to collapse under the weight of everything, it's His strength that will keep you standing. Take a look at the story of Gideon. When God called him to deliver Israel from the Midianites, Gideon didn't exactly feel ready. In Judges 6, he questions God and even doubts that God can use him. But God's answer is simple: "I will be with you." And that promise changed everything for Gideon. It wasn't about Gideon's strength. It was about God's. With God's presence, Gideon was able to defeat the Midianites, even when he was outnumbered and under-equipped. That's the key to finding strength in the middle of your struggles. It's not about what you can do. It's about what God can do through you. His strength is made perfect in our weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. And when we admit that we're not enough on our own, He steps in with His all-sufficient power. You might feel tired, worn out, and like you've reached your limit, but God's strength never runs dry. So the next time you're feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, don't try to muscle through it on your own. Lean into God's strength. Trust that He's with you in the struggle, and that He's the one who will deliver you. His strength is more than enough to carry you through whatever you're facing, and He will honor you as you lean on Him. God's not asking you to have it all figured out or to fight this battle alone. He's asking you to trust in His strength, to rest in His power, and to allow Him to work through you. You might feel weak, but He is strong. And with His strength, you can face anything that comes your way. So stop trying to do it on your own. Rest in His power and let Him deliver you. Before we end, I want to leave you with a final thought to carry through your day. God's shelter isn't just for moments of crisis. It's not only there when you're drowning in stress or facing the impossible. It's available to you every single day, no matter where you are or what you're going through. His presence is not something you have to beg for or wait for. It's always with you, always ready to offer peace, rest, and protection. Psalm 91 is a reminder that no matter what life throws at you, God is with you. When the world seems like it's falling apart, you don't have to face it alone. He's the refuge you can run to, the strength that never runs dry, and the promise that will never fail. So take a moment right now to embrace that truth. Let it sink into your spirit, and let it be your foundation as you step into the rest of your day. As you continue your walk through life, know that God has already gone before you. No storm is too strong, no obstacle too great, and no fear too big for His protection. He will deliver you, just like He promised. And when you feel overwhelmed again, and let's be real, we all do, remember that you can always turn to Him for shelter. Thank you so much for joining me today in prayer. If this video encouraged you, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more prayers and teachings to strengthen your faith. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to share it with someone who could really use a reminder of God's shelter and protection. And if you're going through something right now and need prayer, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I'm praying for you, and I believe God's protection will cover you every step of the way. As we close, I just want to say you are safe in God's shelter. You are protected in His wings. He will never leave you or forsake you. Take that truth with you today and rest in His peace. God bless you.